At just 6 years old, she was married to a man almost 5 times her age. While her wedding gown was stitched with gold, her trousseau filled with dolls. The marriage was meant to end a war that had raged for decades, but in truth, it only ended her childhood. In this video, we'll uncover the life of Isabella of Valois, the forgotten Queen of England. The princess born into madness. Born in 1389, Princess Isabella of France was born into madness, literally. Her father, King Charles VI, was known across Europe as Charles the Mad. His mind broke without warning. One day he ruled like a king, the next he raged through the halls, attacking anyone in sight. He believed he was made of glass and that a single touch could shatter him. France didn't have a stable ruler, it had a ghost of one. Her mother, Queen Isabella of Bavaria, was no comfort to the people. She was hated for her greed, her affairs, and her cold ambition. When the king was unwell, which was most of the time, she took control, cutting deals and making enemies on all sides. Isabella wasn't the only child caught in the storm. She had many siblings, 11 in total, though not all would survive childhood. Only 7 survived infancy. This was the world Isabella opened her eyes to. A family falling apart, a country at war, and a crown no one truly controlled. Being the first to survive childhood after 2 dead older siblings, she was seen as a bargaining chip. She was an instrument of strategy, and soon that strategy would reach across the sea. Because in England, another king was looking for peace, and he was about to make a deal that would change Isabella's life forever. The deal of a lifetime. By 1396, the 100 Years' War had drained both kingdoms dry. France was bleeding from the inside, and England was tired of fighting ghosts across the Channel. That's when England's king, Richard II, saw an opportunity. He was 29, a widower with no heir, and desperate to secure his throne. So he reached out to France, not with an army, but with a proposal. France, equally desperate for peace, agreed to negotiate. The offer was straightforward, a marriage in exchange for a truce. England would stop fighting, and in return, France would send a bride. That bride was 6-year-old Princess Isabella. She never knew that grown men were trading promises they never planned to keep. For France, it was a chance to stall the war. For England, it was a move to silence enemies who questioned Richard's power. At just 6 years old, Isabella's childhood became a contract. They said it was for peace, but peace, as history has proven, always comes with a price. The wedding of a child. On October 31st, 1396, in the city of Calais, France and England came together, not on a battlefield, but at an altar. Isabella of France was carried to the ceremony by dukes, her small frame almost swallowed by layers of blue velvet embroidered with gold fleur-de-lis. Her trousseau, the gifts she brought into marriage, even included her dolls. To the outside world, it was a grand moment, a celebration of peace between 2 nations that had spent decades spilling each other's blood. But beneath the golden ceremony was something darker, a child being traded for a treaty. Isabella didn't know the meaning of war or peace. She only knew that everyone kept calling her a queen. When she took her vows, her voice was soft and unsure. And Richard, a grown man, swore he would not consummate the marriage until she came of age, around 12. His promise was seen as noble at the time, but it didn't change the truth. This wasn't a union of love. It was a deal, signed in silk and sealed with a child's future. The world celebrated that day as the beginning of peace, but for Isabella, it marked something else. The day her childhood quietly ended. The child queen in a foreign land. After the wedding, Isabella left behind everything she knew, her family, her language, and her childhood, to begin her new life in England. She was taken to Windsor Castle, where she was given her own court filled with French ladies-in-waiting and a governess named Madame de Coucy. To make her feel at home, her rooms were filled with familiar comforts, toys, books, and silk dolls from France. At just 7 years old, Isabella was crowned Queen of England at Westminster Abbey. The ceremony was dazzling, jewels, banners, and songs praising a child who barely understood what was happening. To the people, she was a symbol of peace. To the court, she was still a political tool, and yet, in this strange new world, something unexpected happened. King Richard II, her much older husband, showed a rare kind of kindness. He didn't treat Isabella as a wife, he treated her like a child. He sent her gifts, played with her, and told her stories. She laughed in his presence, a small miracle in a life designed for politics. not joy. He once even said she was the only one who could comfort him. For a brief moment, there was tenderness, a fragile peace between two people trapped by duty. But in history, gentle moments never last long. Because outside the castle walls, the same nobles who celebrated their marriage were already plotting Richard's downfall, the fall of a king. For a few short years, Isabella's world was calm, almost peaceful, but that peace was built on shaky ground. By 1399, King Richard's rule was falling apart. His leadership was questioned, his nobles were restless, and his cousin Henry Bolingbroke was quietly gathering support to take the throne. When Richard left for a campaign in Ireland, he stopped to see Isabella one last time. He kissed her hand and promised, "I'll send for you soon." She smiled, believing him, but that promise would never be kept. While Richard was away, Henry Bolingbroke returned to England, seized control of the kingdom, and declared himself king. Richard was betrayed, captured, and thrown into prison. Isabella, just 10 years old, became a hostage in her own palace. She was moved from Wallingford Castle to Leeds, then to Sunning, and finally Havering Palace, always watched, always controlled. The girl who was once a symbol of peace was now just another piece in England's power struggle. And then the news came. In February 1400, Richard II was dead, starved or murdered in captivity. No one knew for sure, but everyone understood what it meant. The child queen was now a widow before her 12th birthday. Isabella went into deep mourning. She dressed in black, refused food, and would not smile. When Henry IV tried to force her to marry his son, she refused. "I will not take another husband while my lord still lives," she said, refusing to accept that Richard was truly gone. After long negotiations, Henry finally agreed to send her home. In 1401, Isabella left England for France. She was allowed to take her jewels, but not her dowry. Henry kept that as part of his victory. As her ship sailed across the Channel, she left behind the country that had stolen her childhood, but even in defeat, Isabella's defiance made her dangerous, a girl who said no to a king. The princess who tried again. When Isabella finally returned to France, she was still only 12, but already a widow, a queen without a kingdom, and a child who had seen too much. Life at the French court had changed. Her father, King Charles VI, was still lost in bouts of madness, and her mother continued to play dangerous political games. But for the first time, Isabella was back among her family, away from English control. Years passed, and the French court began to plan her future again, because peace always had a price, and Isabella was still valuable. In 1406, at just 16, she was married once more, this time to her cousin, Charles of Orléans, who was only 11. It was another alliance, another deal, another crown without choice. For a brief time, there was hope. She became pregnant and, in 1409, gave birth to a daughter, Joan of Valois. But the joy didn't last. Isabella died shortly after childbirth, only 19 years old. Her life had been shaped by politics, war, and duty. From her first day to her last, she was used as an instrument of peace for others, and died before she ever had the chance to live in it. Forgotten and found. After her death, Isabella was buried in Blois, in the Abbey of Saint-Lomé. Quiet, uncelebrated, far from the grandeur she was once promised. Centuries later, her remains were moved to Paris, to the convent of the Celestines, the resting place of French royalty. But even in death, she found no peace. During the French Revolution, her tomb was destroyed, her remains scattered, like so many others who had worn crowns. History moved on without her. In England, she was remembered only as the child bride of Richard II. In France, she was overshadowed by her father's madness and her mother's reputation. She was a queen at 6, a widow at 10, a mother at 19, and forgotten by 20. In the end, Isabella's story isn't just about a forgotten queen. It's about a child who carried the weight of 2 nations before she even learned what freedom meant. How many more stories like hers have been buried with the crowns that silenced them? If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing.